G'day, it's Brad Laurie, or BlockchainBrad, and today I'm honoured to speak with a fellow Aussie. Many of you know him. He's well known on crypto Twitter. His name is Crypto Bitlord. Mate, thank you very much for your time today.
Going on, folks. Good to be here. Loving it.
Love that accent, mate. It's certainly one that not everyone hears all the time, but you rock the accent right around the world. Everyone knows you in CT or crypto Twitter. Now, mate, everyone knows that you are a charismatic, controversial crypto character. They're the 4 C's I've written down for you. You've stood true to your word. You've always been there on crypto Twitter, smashing out those comments. And mate, what essentially do you stand for? Let's look at your background a bit. A lot of people don't know you, outside of the scope of what you tweet. So who is the real Crypto Bitlord?
It just comes down to simple shit, man. I mean, like, you have something on your mind you want to say it. If there's, things going on, just get it out there. You're not always right. It's human nature. It's just like, that's how I do things, man. And, of course I'm going to be wrong and do things not everybody likes, but fuck, man, that's the way the world works. You're never going to impress everybody or everyone's going to like you. So just keep going. If you care what people think too much, you're not going to do you. And that's what it comes down to.
Right, so basically do your thing and go full throttle. That's what you seem to have been doing. Now, mate, with regard to your role in crypto, can we talk about that? How do you perceive your own role in what you've built so far?
I don't understand, mate. How do I perceive my role in what I've built?
So,
I mean, like,
what do you think that you offer and what do you fundamentally do, in your role? Yeah. Because obviously there's responsibilities and roles in each of the different things and pursuits people, make, whether that be educational, whether that be one where they represent a startup.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, my role is to enjoy myself. That's my role. So it's like, I like to enjoy myself, have some fun. I like to make people laugh, and I hope they have a good time. I feel like I've got a pretty interesting sense of humor. A lot of people get that, and a lot of guys in crypto can relate to that. So it's just, that's pretty much my role. I used to, earlier days, I used to post a lot of more educational stuff, like shit that they don't teach you these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to find a lot of good coins, a lot of good projects, put them out there. And that's like, I think a lot of that is how I got to this stage, is because I have those foundations. I made a name early, like doing some cool stuff, getting on some good coins. A lot of people did, getting out at the right time, just kicking back and, enjoying the crypto life, mate. That's simple. And nowadays it's like, look, there's all sorts of things going on. For me, it's like, look, I just love the space. I just like to be involved in the space. So, I just like, I see something, I comment on, or say it, we can have a meme come out of something, or, I look to help or raise light of important issues, stuff like that. Just do like the Aussie thing, mate. Just be a good cunt. That's simple.
I love it. I love the way that you use the words in the way that only Aussies would know. Now, mate, with regard to you being real, bringing in the humour, there is a more serious side to you as well, with regards to taking on board partnerships, with also trying to build out your own capacity. So do you want to talk to us a bit about that? Because there is a brain also, working, around the clock, 24/7 when it comes to you. You're not just,
I hope so, mate. I tell you what, look, the thing is, there's a lot of things happening in crypto, a lot of opportunities, and it's a good time to get involved in these things, to see something that you like and you stand by, that you can genuinely have a belief in, to get on board and support that, help it grow. There's always like a mutual benefit to these things. So if there's a lot of opportunity to change the world, change finance, change trading, change technology, all that sort of stuff. So it comes down to, look, what got you into Bitcoin? Most people, they have a look at it, they have a closer look, they believe in it, what it stands for, what it means, and they get on board. They buy this shit, they hold it, they transact it, they tell their friends and family. It's the same thing with a lot of these projects, mate. You see something that you believe in, you just get on board. It's that simple. And not always is there money involved, or is there something to it. It can just be, the the better of humankind. Like that's what it is.
And you've been vocal about some of the partnerships, and we'll talk about DueDex later in the interview. But I wanted to pull it back to XRP and the altcoin discussion as well, because one of the things you've always been clear on is that you branched out to explore startups in the space, for their merit or just, for their value, as things were moving in that 2017, insane, what some would argue is a major bubble. So, what's your take on altcoins? How do you assess value, especially when it comes to, you having a media position?
Okay, most of it it's like a lot of it is bullshit, mate. I mean, even through the early days, we're buying and selling things that were literally known scams. We know it was bullshit, we know it was something, but it just comes down to the fact that it's new, it sounds good, it's got a great name, a fancy fucking logo, all that sort of shit, and there's a huge money flow. There's a massive pool of money that's looking to move into something and basically pump it. So that's how it was in the early days. You had to trade something, even if you thought it was utter shit, it was going to move. To this day, it's a little more complex. I mean, there's a lot more competition, a lot more dilution. So obviously the selection process is a bit more strict, but it all comes down to that same thing, mate. Looking for something that hasn't been done, something unique, something that stands out, something different. Obviously, like, a good team that know what they're doing, that have they don't even need to have a proven track record. They just need to be delivering in that. So right now there's not a lot of, altcoins. It's a new era now. It's never going to be like it was beforehand. Things are moving to sort of more business and tech orientated. Can this altcoin or STO or whatever the fuck you want to call it, can it be profitable, or what are the case? Some of these chains, can they scale? What do they deliver? When you really look at it, it is the same shit that we have seen from like day one. 2012, 2013, just repackaged over and over and over again. But now we're getting bored of it. The old shit doesn't excite us anymore. It's like, show me something I haven't seen. It's literally all the same shit, So I guess now what I'm looking at is, if Bitcoin's going to continue to grow and appreciate in value, I look at things now in terms of cheap alternatives. What are the normies going to see as a cheap alternative? So I look at these things. I look at the exchange exposure they have, conflict-free pass, that, example, no pre-mine, ISL, that sort of stuff. And I'll buy a bit. Fuck, I'm going to sneeze, bro.
No worries. And what's interesting too as well, Bitlord, bless you, mate, is a good segue just to add into that, mate. Because clearly you look at some of those fundamentals now, as you mentioned, because we're moving more into like this tech-centric sort of era. There's a high demand from the whole space for more valid and legit coins, it would seem now than before, because before you could throw a dart, as you sort of alluded to. But in that context, we're still seeing price be a huge reason for entry. And you mentioned, as Bitcoin starts to, present itself as something that's not necessarily moving rapidly, in terms of 2x, 3x, for example. Are you someone who really advocates for learning about those that have sound tech, but also have a greater likelihood and propensity towards faster gains in the short term?
Yeah, I feel like, look, BTCs, you got to understand, it's still priced out for a lot of people to own a whole Bitcoin. It's not always a major choice. Let's put it like this, right? Get an exchange. Let's just call it Shitcoin Exchange X. You put Bitcoin on it, and you put Dogecoin on it. Now, when the normies go to this exchange and they see Bitcoin for $8,000, and then they see Dogecoin for, example, 10 cents. The normies are going to buy a lot of the Dogecoin because they get so many units, per dollar. They get 10 units per dollar, whereas for Bitcoin, they get like 0.00. It's just how the normie brain works. They'll buy a lot of the Dogecoin. And it just comes down to, looking at things like that. So when I say these coins have the exposure across exchanges, I can quite happily load up on these things and hold them into the 2030s, because if Bitcoin catches on, these cheap alternatives should do really well, really, really well. So, and I believe they have the ability to outpace BTC. And that's pretty much how I look at some of these things right now. The game's changed entirely.
Perhaps that's the reason why people really, enjoy your content, because you do seem to look out for the little guy, in the way in which you approach your content. Now, let's talk about some of the ones you have been really vocal about, mate, as well, like XRP, Ripple, the drama, the fork. I really want to get your take on this because, you jumped in when the price was pretty low some time ago, and you've always been a major supporter of XRP. So, how do you see things now as they start to move into business? They start to argue they have real utility now.
Look, they always did. Like I was getting into Ripple at like under 1 US cent, like 0.7, 0.54, and it's like I always believed in Ripple, and I really got interested in what they were doing, and like even in those early days, I could see the potential for being integrated into like the US financial system and that sort of stuff. And it was like it almost developed like a conspiracy theory for the early day Ripplers. And I was right there, like feeding into that shit. And I thought, look, if they can achieve like just a fraction of what they're really setting out to do, this thing has potential. Years later, we get to this stage, and now we're seeing, Ripple, obviously they moved away. They tried to do the whole thing with the logo, where the community make the logo because we're not responsible for the coin. We're not responsible for the price of XRP. Like, fuck you are. They're directly responsible for the price of XRP. You cannot hold like 50% of the supply, continue dumping $250 million a quarter on the market, and say you're not responsible for the price. That is delusion, like at the fucking highest level, man. So, I started to get upset seeing the stance from the executives in Ripple. Brad Garlinghouse saying that they're not responsible for the price of XRP. To me that's insane. And I feel like if you're going to continue dumping on the community and riding off the back of the XRP army, allowing them and feeding into that hype, like it's Ripple's third-party hype machine. They feed into it because it's basically like their marketing mechanism to pretty much pump the price of XRP and continue onboarding retail investment. So they've got an air gap to do that. So they're not as they would like to believe liable and all that sort of shit. But it just started really getting to me, seeing the price continue down, the hype continuing from XRP. And look, they even tried to pump it for this flow stuff. Have a look at how they were acting on social media. They literally tried to pump the coin. Now, it just got to a point, mate, where enough is enough. You can't keep dumping on the community, continuing to dump on the community, investing into real life businesses, and then say you're not responsible for the price of XRP. You're directly responsible for it. You need to take ownership and responsibility. So I pretty much had enough, and I thought everybody else had as well. I'm going to say something. I'm going to do something. So I said, look.
Certainly did. Headlines right around the crypto world, all the way to mainstream media.
Mate. That's it, mate. I basically said, look, you stop dumping this shit, or we'll fork and we'll create Ripple One. And it was like, at first it was like a bit of a joke, and then it got serious. A lot of, mate, you'd be surprised how many people, how much money, how many developers just literally came out of nowhere over the space of a week. It was like there was a good like up and over 10 mil, like ready to go, like from people wanting to create this. Developers fucking from all across the world, mate. Huge community. And yeah, it became like serious. And no doubt it could still to this day, it could happen. But one of the big things is not wanting to have a look at Bitcoin Cash. What a shithole. So, I mean, and all that subtracted from Bitcoin. It subtracted hash power. It subtracted community. It subtracted money flow from BTC. So it was a dilution. and it's just useless now. So I never wanted to create something like that. If it's done, it has to be done properly. It has to serve a long-term function and have utility, have purpose. The thing is with Ripple One, we could create it so easily, but is it going to have the longevity?
Well,
Not yet.
to jump in, if that's okay, Bitlord, I want to ask you, you raised Bitcoin Cash, and Roger Ver, he would argue, had the same sentiment for his own, ends when it came to Bitcoin. So without me trying to jump in with my own view, which I won't do you see what I mean? Is that you obviously have a serious issue with Brad, House, and the XRP.
No. The thing is with Roger Ver, a lot of what he did was just based on ego. The guy was running off ego. There wasn't a whole lot of sense to what he was doing. And I still believe to this day that Roger Ver was used by a lot of people like a wet rag. And hard for him to look back on that. But the thing is, like, he was more. You look at his posts, his behavior, his actions. It was all really down to, and that's not what Ripple One's about. Ripple One is about helping the people, providing something. So you're not going to be forced, dumped on. 250 mil is not going to come and dump on you like this quarter. It's about having something that has the opportunity for growth, has the opportunity to go ahead and provide.
Sure, mate. And
there's no, yeah.
And what's interesting too, mate, sorry to interrupt, is that you have this idea with XRP as being this bridge between fiat to really support e-commerce, to really globalize, a new narrative and a new financial paradigm. Essentially, they want to be one of those key assets that enable this kind of global trade. Now, in that context, where do you stand with regard to centralization and decentralization? Now, where do you stand with regard to us as actors in the space having more autonomy when it comes to money and settlement, and even just making transactions more seamless?
The thing is, mate, like, true decentralization it's a bit of a pipe dream. Have a look at any coin, any blockchain creation that we have wanted to be truly decentralized. You really look at it, even Bitcoin is centralized to a degree through the hash power, through the mining pools. But the difference is, they're not, and they can't censor transactions. Whereas an entity like Ripple could and would if the necessity arose. So when I look at decentralization, I believe that we're quite some time off from really achieving that from a technological standpoint. But in regards to freedom of transaction, I believe everyone should have the right to that. And of course, there are certain transactions that we're not going to agree with. You see it every day. For example, PayPal cancelled the accounts of people that were involved with Pornhub and things like that. You're buying weed and stuff like that. You're cancelled. You're buying crypto. You're cancelled. It's like, well, actually, if I want to buy and smoke a stick, I should be able to. If you want to go ahead and watch some of that material, you should be able to.
And mate, we know from decades, if not centuries of fiat use, we know that that's also been a medium of exchange for equally illicit practices. It's no different, really, in that context. It's what they're both tools, arguably, for different people, for different purposes. But moving back again to this conversation about utility, and we talk about XRP. Clearly, you foresee great increase in utility for the network that they're building. But what about in the context of equity? You mentioned this significant decline in value of XRP over time, which obviously concerns you as someone who was an early investor. But how do you feel when they go and do equity raises and they have a real company entity and that they can create revenue regardless of the price of that utility token? It's something that always confuses me.
Exactly. So that's a big thing behind Ripple One. So there's a company that's created this token that continue leading investors on, basically just roping everybody in. And at the same time, as they're dumping it on the market, saying that well, we're not responsible for the price of or the performance of XRP. And then when it suits them, they like to have a closer relationship with XRP when things are doing well. When it's not, they like to distance themselves. That is a red flag to me. And this same company is selling the XRP and buying real world businesses and real world assets. How the fuck is that legal? You know, like what's going on here? And as you said, and then they're doing equity raises. If I'm an XRP holder, I don't own that shit. I've got no rights to the equity or anything like that, according to XRP. But in my belief, XRP is it is a highly centralized organization, and those tokens, those Ripple tokens, that should give you that should be like stock, that should be like equity in the Ripple company. But as you can see, they will continue selling that shit, buying new businesses, expanding, and they don't owe you nothing. All they need to do is continue to, you know, allow normies to believe that it's going to replace the fucking Federal Reserve's fucking system. That's all they need to do. They need to continue that, and they continue dumping this shit until it goes to zero, mate. That's the end of the day.
And mate, obviously it's interesting at the moment because we're in this terminological question mark. We don't really know exactly how to define each of these, but right now the US has argued that Ethereum and Bitcoin are legally commodities, as we know, but it's going to be interesting to see how the rest play out and how they're determined by the CFTC, the SEC. And certainly, you know, with regard to the future, for those investors in that, what I argue is a pre-utility, that prospect of utility at the very least, they certainly deserve at the very least proof of increasing utility correlation with that token. And they have to see that, otherwise that token has no merit. But those in the XRP camp argue that's coming. So what do you say in response to that when they say, hold that asset because it's a long-term play?
Look, when I hold Ripple, does it give me equity? Does it give me rights? Does it give me any relationship to the money they make?
No.
When they dump the shit on me and my fellow community members?
The answer is no.
No. Should it be? Hell yes.
So
because
in that sense, should we talk about securities, Bitlord? Because
you look at it, mate. It basically fits the hallmark definition of a security. It really doesn't. And of course, they're going to argue that they're going to spend millions and millions of dollars lobbying against this because it puts, you know, like let's say, have a look at Jed. How much money the guy gets? What does he get? Like 18 mil every 30 mil. He just cashes out casually, you know, from his founders' rewards on the community. You know, guys like Jed, guys like Brad Garlinghouse. Of course, he doesn't want to give his money, you know, to these people or share.
Well, you're certainly speaking out and you're letting people know what you think.
He's quite happy. I mean,
sorry, just got slight connection problem there.
If you're going to, just
apologize for the connection.
A little buzzy.
Yeah,
but the thing is, we're good. The thing is, if you're going to create a coin, print it into existence, and then make a community believe that this coin is going to be used for such and such and this and that, and they continue selling and dumping on them, saying that you've got nothing to do with the price of the token, and that the coin gives the community basically fuck all. What is the point of it then? You know what I mean? At this stage, it's been said they don't even need to use XRP for anything. So what is it? What is it doing? What is it existing for? I don't understand. Why am I being led on? Why can't I get a clear answer here?
Right.
You know, I deserve answers.
Let's expand this into the broader conversation, because what's clear is that you're pissed off, you know, that there's this ambiguity with regard to the utility token. You want to see, you know, more clarity with regard to terminology from the SEC, SEFTC. You want to see you want to understand better from them, you know, from their own community and their own team, what essentially it means to have equity. So, you know, some of the things that you are saying, a lot of other people are thinking right now. But do you think that it's possible to have equity and a utility token? Do you think that in the context of crypto, as we see many say they have a utility token or they plan for that to be proven in the future, do you think it's possible Because we know other companies or startups are doing equity raises in concert with a utility token.
It's sort of, I mean, look, if there's any loophole, they will take it, and they'll take it for whatever the hell they can. So, I mean, right now, look, that's pretty much what's happening. You know, in regards to utility tokens, at the end of the day, it's just, a lot of it's bullshit, mate. In actual fact, look at this, right? Have a look at air miles. You know, let's say I'm with American Airlines and I get these points for my air flyers. I mean, we could call that a utility token. I mean, yeah, it's got utility. It's like that. It's just a fucking point system. So with a lot of these utility tokens, a lot of them are just like the things we don't need them. We don't. Show me one utility token that we really need. I mean, please.
Well,
where is one? I mean, I could replace the utility token.
We definitely need sound money for a start, so let's go with that. Obviously, we don't know which is going to achieve that, but we damn well need it.
That's money. That's money.
Right.
That's money. Yeah, that's money. I mean, money is money. It's not a utility token. So a utility token, it's like when you go into a time zone and you get the tokens, or you go into your time zone, you get $100, you get your tokens, you put them in the games to play, and then we're going to call that a utility token. You know, it's like, but for some of these companies and startups, what they do, you know, they raise a lot of money and then they go and develop something that doesn't really. It doesn't really need a utility token. They just need to make that up. You know what I mean? So they can
raise capital.
You know, pay themselves. Yeah, raise capital, pay themselves like enormous amounts of money. You know, to try something that they don't know is going to work or not. That's pretty much what's happening in this space. We've seen this the early days, the very early days. But the difference is, the early days it was much different. People were trying stuff that had never been done before. It was a completely new world. And I fully supported, you know, everything that was going on. Now we just see people taking the piss, literally.
Right. And for those who don't know that phrase, that, you know, it means essentially making a mockery of the space. And it's certainly true, because, and then there's the flip side. We're starting to see arguably teams that are actually potentially trying to showcase in the future real utility. We don't know, as you mentioned, but would you argue that most of the time we're in a crypto casino right now, where gambling is, you know, the commonplace practice? Or do you think that we're morphing into something different?
Okay, blockchain is, when you look at blockchain, look, this whole place is a circus, mate. It really is, and it's great entertainment. When you look at blockchain, it's slow, very expensive. We've been using, but the thing is, when you really look at the essence of a blockchain, we've been using blockchains for thousands of years. It's just a record-keeping system, a very secure record-keeping system. Do we need miners? Do we need tokens? Do we need all this shit to operate a blockchain? No, we do not. We honestly do not. So, you know, when I look at blockchain, I look at blockchain as a pretty much like an ancient, like, it's pretty much ancient shit, mate. I mean, it is. You know, you've seen it, like, you know, back to the Mayans, how they would, you know, record things. You could call that a blockchain. Seriously. I mean, it's that simple. So, you know, when I look at something like Bitcoin, it's just an implementation of that technology. And, you know, do we really, you know, we're overhype it a lot, mate. We really do. And I feel like, you know, going forwards, a lot of the let's call it, you know, blockchains and things like that, they don't really need to exist. And, you know, it'll sort of fade out. Like it's just like a natural part. It's like you look at your banking ledger, you know, you could call that a blockchain if you really wanted to.
Well, it's interesting, you know, you said the word ledger there, Bitlord, because we've already seen tokenized startups, you know, crypto based, you know, blockchain startups that have showcase the use of blockchains and the utility of blockchains in that private sector, that permission and ledger, based orientation. So there's certainly evidence to suggest what you're saying is true, that there is value pre, tokenized sort of unitizing blockchain. But do you think that dispels the value though? Do you think that it's possible and plausible that there will be a means for some of these tokens to actually function as a utility, not as a currency, not as a unit of exchange, much like we see money play out, but more so some sort of unit that represents more of a stable indicator of what that business represents? You understand business very well. Could it be something that's not meant to be sexy for the shiller or for the investor? Could it be something that's just meant to be a representation, like you mentioned, with units for mileage and the game space of time zone, where you get those tickets? Could it be something like that?
Look, it already exists. That's what I'm saying. It's the same shit repackaged, just looking different now. And a lot of people coming into this new, their eyes are dazzling and they're like, oh, blockchain, this, fucking that. It's like, yo, man, chill. We've been living in this, since the day we're born, and that's how I look at it now. So, does it need to be on a blockchain? Does it need miners? Does it need staking? Does it need this? Does it need that? Fuck no, it doesn't. It's like as I said before, mate, look at your air mile points. It's fucking air mile points. Who gives a shit, But we can make it sound, we can say, American Airlines are partnering with ADA to, to secure their air mileage points, or this, fuck, whatever, man,
Mate, I have to say, I love the transparency and I love the candid nature of what we're talking about, because you pull no punches and you certainly are not here to talk bullshit. Now, with regard to the bags, like if we take that position for a second, and we acknowledge that there's a lot of collusion, there's a lot of, questionable conduct, and a lot of, arguably, startups that don't have necessarily that core and inherent value, that intrinsic value of utility or of technology. How does that work when you try to speculate? How does it work when you try to purchase assets in this space? What are your bags and how do you approach it? Are you just openly willing to say, look, I just make moves based on price?
No, look, it all comes down to people, and lots of people, and you need to understand that people don't look at it like I do. And I know that. I know that, the crowd, the collective crowd of money, it's usually blind, it just rushes into things. It's like, it's all based on hype. It's all based on, brand image, like all that sort of, it's all based on bullshit pretty much. And knowing that, it's just looking for the next best thing, the next best, what's interesting, what hasn't been done. It all comes down to that, putting a rough valuation on it. Look, most of the things that I've bought and sold literally have been, when you really look at it, fucking worthless, mate. Even things that have been worth billions of dollars have been worthless at the end of the day. Like, they don't really deliver anything. It's just all of this speculative money in there. These things don't do anything. They have no use. But it's it all comes down to speculation. So that's how a lot of these things done, man. And as I said beforehand, well, back in 2012, 2013, we're literally buying and selling things that we knew were absolute crap. But there's just so much money moving into these things, looking for an opportunity. The crowd just dictates things. It's just this huge.
Perhaps not everyone thought they were crap. Perhaps some of them thought that it had merit and jumped in on that narrative, because I can honestly tell you that I was one of those people who, came in from a tech background or came in with that tech premise. So, I was really naive. You clearly were ahead of the game when it came to seeing perhaps what, people like I didn't see. But
yeah,
now we're starting to see in 2019, things certainly become more transparent with increasing pressure from the top down. Obviously the G7, reactions to Libra. We're seeing now laws being passed in many countries to crack down, essentially. So do you see that all those moves as a good thing, Bitlord, in terms of trying to clean up some of these issues of speculation ruling crypto?
Yeah, it's a good thing, mate. I mean, I've always said, look, we need regulation. We need, like, you know, clear guidelines, barriers, and things like that. But there's a limit to it. You know, it's like too much of it and nothing gets done. You know, it's like trying to get work done in a corporation, or try to innovate in a big corporation. It's very hard for any new ideas to really get through because there's so much red tape and there's so many different departments to go through. It's very counterproductive. Same thing with, you know, introducing you know, laws and governance. So there's a fine line, and I guess what it comes down to is having a rough sort of framework in place. And then, of course, people can take advantage of that, and just, you know, dealing with these people that, you know, take advantage of that the wrong way, on a case by case basis until we get, you know, further down the track. The last thing we want to do is stifle innovation. That's why a lot of companies work offshore. They do things offshore. Pretty much, this is how it works right now. You're doing a crypto startup. You think you can change the world, or you know, make some crazy tech that's going to do great. Go set up offshore. Don't serve US customers. Don't serve this, that country, etc., etc. That's pretty much how things work right now. So,
Right.
And you know, until things are clearer, you know, in those jurisdictions, it'll just stay like that.
Yeah, and mate, you have a lot of insights in this space, and I certainly have been privileged to understand more of the mechanics that are internal to that this crypto sort of beast that's emerged. But what are your thoughts on things like, for example, market making? And then we see, you know, ironically, we're talking about this, but the influence and power of influencers trying to support that narrative, or the power of partnership announcements, you know, consistent ones, you know, that are obviously designed to attract and garner attention. You know, what are your comments on that strategy we see that over and over, especially with very liquid startups, to try, I would argue, trying to really grab the attention, if not, you know, cause price movement?
It's just nature. You know, you have a look at a bird trying to get the attention of a mate. It's going to do a dance. It's going to do a show. It's going to do it sing, you know? And it's like these startups, they're trying to get attention. They're trying to get like themselves out there. They're trying to grow a user base. They'll do whatever they have to, you know?
Right.
And I support that. It's within reason, you know what I mean? As long as they're not doing anything malicious or trying to take advantage of people, you know, that's where you draw the line. But, you know, they're going to, you know, do announcements and do things like that. Look, crypto's not regulated like the real world. So some of these announcements, and look, we've seen some pretty outrageous things from certain individuals. I mean, have a look at Justin Sun, for example. I mean, he's done some, I don't have the word for it right now, but
yeah, we don't even have time to go into that, you know, because it's a long list of stuff.
And look, it just continues. It continues and it continues, and that's look. At the end of the day, I appreciate that shit. I have a good laugh. Like I can see through a lot of it, and as I said, this shit, it's just a big fucking circus, mate. So, you know, companies will continue doing that as they need to. Look, most of the guys in the space, they don't shield, they don't push these low cap things anymore. I mean, back in the day, look, we'd push anything and everything, and just like really, really get involved, because, you know, it's just, you're just going. Now it's different. You know, you're being a lot more, you know, thoughtful about the way things are done and stuff like that, and just really trying to, you know, understand. It's like, okay, well, you need to, you know, protect people more. You're not just in it for yourself now. So that's
cool of you. That is really cool of you to mention that, because, you know, we tend to see a lot of ego in the past, or whatever can, you know, and we've seen certain operators in the space, whether they're influencers or whether they're, you know, some of the teams, even sometimes, or some of the VCs, people don't talk about, or even exchanges. A lot of it was for themselves. Now we're seeing people get wrecked over and over and over. So there's more accountability and more caution. But in the context of your bags, I want to talk to you about that. I don't know how transparent you want to be, but you mentioned you're not really interested in those liquid sort of low caps. So what do you tend to look for, you know, in the metrics you use?
Look, I'm interested in everything, mate. Look, there's the problem is now that things have scaled. So back in the day, you'd be looking at like a 250, 500K coin would sort of be like almost like a mid nearly a mid cap
Right.
through like one period. Nowadays, it's utter, it's utter shit. I mean, if there's anything 250, 500K, it's there for a reason. The chances that it's going to have the right people involved, the right this, the right that, extremely low. I mean, look, you got to understand, people that have the skill in this space, that have that ability, let's say there's like, 5 people on a team, there's $500,000 isn't enough to be an incentive or to be an interest for, for one person, let alone 5. So, you want to start looking at things like micro caps. You got to start looking up around, a couple mil sort of now, and then things start to make sense. But, that's how the game shifted a little bit. And
it certainly makes a lot of sense, mate, with regard to liquidity to sustain their plan, if indeed they're working towards that, that utility goal and mindset and proof. But in the terms of real utility, real volume as well, Bitlord, I wanted to ask you about that, because there's a lot of suggestions from, reasonable papers or sound research, let's say, that suggest that we're not seeing real volume across the board. In fact, the real volume perhaps of all of crypto is bullshit. When in the broader scheme of things. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you think that, it would shock people to see the true and authentic volumes that exist in this space?
Same shit we heard for years now. I mean, people are saying that there's fake volume on Mint Pow and Polo and every exchange under the sun since the dawn of time. And
right.
Look, or they say one of my favorites, it's a fake wall, a fake wall. Well, fuck me, it can't be fake if I can buy it or I can sell into it. It's there, I can hit it right now. It ain't fake. Maybe it's going to move if I put a big bid next to it or an ask near it. It'll move. Maybe it's spoofing the books, but it's real, and you can access it. In regards to the volume, there's a lot of look. Of course, there's questionable volume in crypto. There's questionable volume in the stock market, in the forex.
Right.
In commodities, everywhere. There's always going to be, it's all sorts of things happening. This is the real world. We have to admit that. But look, obviously, some exchanges they started up, doing things dodgy, and there's all sorts of things going on there. And still to this day, there's some exchanges that they like to say that they are doing real volume and things like that. When in actual fact, you can look at just how consistent the volume is. It's like that the whole time. That's not organic. That's not real. All that is it's bots just painting it. Real volume, it looks like this. It's like all over the place. That's with the natural price movements where anything too consistent is obvious, super obvious. Now, I have seen some crazy fake volume on exchanges where it's just like, oh my God, you tell me, how is a coin that has a $60 million market cap have $100 million in volume consistently, through the course of a month or the course of, 2 weeks?
Exactly.
That is fucked up.
And as you mentioned, it can happen because we're in an unregulated environment, which could be, the playground for that kind of conduct still. Because even if the SEC and the CFTC crack down, what is the rest of the world doing? There's always havens for these parties to reside and act.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, Binance was a hotspot for this, and in reality, they sort of fostered a lot of this stuff with the volume comps and things like that, where they're saying, whoever trades the most volume in this pair will get this or that or whatever the case. And it's like, so hold on, you're telling me I should be buying and selling more than I need to, and
to get the incentive,
doing whatever the fuck I need to get this prize or to get this. It's like, I don't know about that. I don't know. And it was look, all it does, it's hollow. It doesn't actually do anything for that coin, for that token. Everybody's just sitting there. I guess it brings liquidity to the market, but
what quality and what credibility
it's not real.
Right.
It's not real. And
mate,
that's how I look at it in regards Yeah.
And mate, I want to talk to you about DueDex because you certainly been very vocal about that, and I want to get into some details of it. But before we do, I just wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on when people are aware of some of the problems, you know, with a specific, perhaps a startup, or they haven't done, let's say, their due diligence, but they just look at the metrics, they look at the potential for it to be shilled, and they invest in that before they start to shill it, whether that be an influencer, whether that be a VC, whether that be, you know, any party, it doesn't really matter. But I really want to get your take on this, because you're really open about the fact that we're in this casino. But what are your thoughts on those that invest and that without due diligence, knowing that it could just simply be pushed, you know, really substantially with the right community, with the right sort of, you know, back end team?
Yeah. Well, I think mostly it's like, okay, you're gonna buy something. You're gonna have a look at it. You're gonna, like, you know, you're gonna research. You're gonna do your stuff. You're gonna get invested in it. When you're invested in something, you've got an incentive. You're sort of you know, pushed to speak well of it. You know,
Right.
to go ahead and you know, perceive it in a positive light. And anything that comes bad to it, it's something that we can figure out. That's the mentality behind it. When you're invested, have a look at people that invested in BitConnect. You know, they've got their money on the line. They're basically in a fucking scam that the whole world's telling them, look, guys, I'm telling you, it's a scam. It's a scam. And look, I'll tell you now, there's some prominent, you know, influencers that pushed BitConnect back in the day that we said, yo, bro, this is a scam. It is clearly a scam, but they're getting paid big money. So they look the other way, or the delusion kicks in, and it makes no sense. No, it can't be a scam. I'm making so much money. So that's like the extreme end of things.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? The extreme end of that delusion.
And mate, does it make us an asshole? Does it make us an asshole if we speak out, though? I really want to ask you that because you're vocal. You know, you speak your mind, and I've done that a few times and been labelled, you know, controversial for literally, you know, arguing against Sparkster, for example, which to me was akin to BitConnect. So, at what point, you know, should we be speaking up, or should we at all?
Whatever comes in, so, you know, to a degree, you know, like, I mean, the thing is, you're not always going to be right. You're not always going to be like accurate, but fuck, who is, man? It's like, you know, people are always going to judge you on shit. You know, people are always going to try to, you know, when it suits them, they'll find the worst of you and put it out there for them and say, look, this guy's an absolute fucking animal. What a piece of shit. You know, they'll put the worst out there. You can do that for literally any person. I mean, I could find dirt on anyone in the world, you know, and you could look bad, but you know, that's when it suits them. The end of the, like, you know, most people deep down are good people, have good intentions. Of course, there's some assholes out there, but even assholes can be good people. So I just feel like, you know, you can only do you, and of course you're going to be wrong. Of course you'll fuck up, but that's life. And when you realize it, you know.
But Bitlord, you're pretty vocal. You mentioned BitConnect before. Let's fast forward. If you saw something like that today, you know, with a group of mates you know in the space, let's say me, for example, say I'm the bad actor, wouldn't you call me out because you know that I'm, you know, I'd be chilling the fuck out of something that's a load of shit? And causing people to get wrecked? I
mean, you know, let's say I'm on Twitter and I'm just like, you know, scrolling on, like, you know, doing my thing, and then I see something pop up. I'm like, yo, bro, what the fuck is this? What are you doing? You know, that's how I do it. And that could be as far as it goes, you know, because I mean, I'm not going to spend all my energy, all my time on that, because I'm still doing my thing, you know. But I generally want to see something that's, you know, like, I'll just comment. Like, if I see something really funny, I'm like, you know, hilarious, or retweet, or say something, or if I see something really dumb, or what the fuck, or you know, it's just like a social interaction, you know. But I'm not gonna start a crusade on it, you know. I don't have time.
Got it. And I really respect that you lighten things up. I tend not to. I tend to really look at things and worry about those parties that are vulnerable and don't have their time poor, and don't really understand necessarily all the things that they've invested in. But I really hear what you're saying.
Well, you can't save the world, man. You know, you can't.
Right. Now, mate, DueDex. Let's get into this just briefly. I know you got to go soon, but DueDex is the hot word of the day for you with regard to you supporting them. Now, they're a crypto derivatives trading platform. Tell us more, mate, about this without shilling us.
well, I'm going Schiller, man. So it comes down to, look, you know, have a look at the derivative space. Huge market, huge potential. And a lot of these exchanges, they're not doing things right by their users. They're taking advantage of their users. A lot of them, if not all of them, they're running internal trading desks. So what that means is they're basically trading against their customers. That's exactly what it is. They do it through the guise of providing liquidity. They set up offshore companies, subsidiaries, whatever the hell they need to do, but they do it on the same platform with the same technology and the same people involved. They just, you know, do a little bit of hocus pocus and off we go. So, you know, a lot of times like, I felt like even, and look, like, you know, some of these exchanges, they bootstrap the liquidity doing these sort of things. A lot of this stuff is not exactly legal in the traditional world. And I just feel like even it's, you know, if they're skimming the orders a couple cents or a couple dollars, some people might look and go, oh, it's not that much, you know, I'm able to trade here. But to me, it comes down to principle. And that's what rules crypto, you know, the principle and the character. So look, mate, DueDex contacted me a while ago and I just thought, who the fuck out of here? Another one of these exchanges or partnerships or something that wants something, you know, and it gives so many of them a day. And I was like, whatever. Then something, I don't know how it came up, but I realized that Bo Wang was involved in it. And I knew this guy from the 2013, 2014 Ethereum days. I remember him back on the forums. And you can tell someone's character by the way they interact, things they do, all this sort of stuff. And I thought, well, this guy's solid. And he's involved. And if he's involved in this, I'm going to take a closer look. So I did. And then I really liked what they were doing. It's all about providing a fair and transparent trading platform for the traders. So, you know, they don't run an internal trading desk. They're literally creating this, foregoing those profits and that bullshit to put me on the same level playing field as the next trader with no special benefits.
And mate, just to jump in there, because I wanted to talk about that internal trading desk, only because there were other exchanges alleging that you had that, and you know that, and I'm going to be talking with Bo, which I'm really looking forward to get into the depth of this and the meat. But you know, how did you feel when you heard other exchanges accusing DueDex of having that internal trading desk?
Okay, listen to this, right? Okay, have a look at this exchange that did that. Have a look at just how, what is the word? Like, is it delusion? Is it like confusion? I don't know. The exchange FTX, they are on the BitMEX leaderboard. They've for making you know, like over 7,000 BTC trading on BitMEX. These people then went ahead to start up an exchange. Okay, now this exchange popped up out of nowhere. They have an exchange token, so they have, you know, liabilities, and it's another one of these utility things. You know, basically everyone wanted to copy Binance. Now they're known. It's well known that they trade on their own exchange. They do it through their subsidiaries. They do it for all sorts of stuff to provide liquidity. They get certain benefits like latency. These guys they're specialized in arbitrage. So.
So we're talking about, just to clarify, we're talking about Alameda as opposed to the exchange, so that there are distinct entities, but there is a connection between the two.
Oh, of course. It's the same people, the same technology on the same platform. You can call it what you want. It's the same, exactly the same. And you try to, like, you know, duck and weave and do this and that. It's the exact same stuff. So these guys are trading on their own platform against their customers with certain latency benefits, you know, certain other benefits that, you know, we're not going to speak about right now. So I just find that completely unfair. And a lot of people do. Nobody wants to trade against you know, the market and the exchange. So the reason why FTX actually came out at DueDex is because they're threatened by the business model. They're obviously threatened by an exchange that provides a fair platform, whereas they do not. Now, the thing is, very interesting, when in this space have we seen a CEO come out and attack the CEO or another small exchange
that's
like
why I
that.
wanted to mention that with you. And just to be clear, I want to let you know also, Crypto Bitlord, that I did contact Sam and the team at FTX when you suggested, subsequent to Wendy O's 2 interviews, you suggested the idea of having them together. And I contacted both parties and got feedback from both. And it is important people understand that there is an interview with DueDex coming up with Bo, the CEO, but that will not be with FTX because they did decline to have that, that interview. So, each to their right, have the right to decline, but that's the reason why, is because of what you're talking about.
It doesn't look good. No, it doesn't. It doesn't look good for FTX. I mean, look, the first thing is this guy Sam. They've spent a lot of money trying to make him look like a good character. But when he came out and he attacked DueDex like that, a small derivatives exchange, just literally trying to provide a fair trading platform for the people. DueDex have never mentioned Sam. They've never mentioned anything about FTX. They just do their work. So for when he came out and attacked them like that, and look, he basically cherry picked, different elements of FUD. There was like Photoshops, there was all sorts of like fake information in there. He was using examples from known Twitter trolls that have been banned over and over. I mean, that's the sort of crowd this guy associates with. So when he did that, he really showed the community, what is basically made of. And if you look at DueDex's response to that, the interview with Bo from Wendy, that is a real CEO. That is real character.
Well, I did watch it. I certainly did watch it, and I'm basing a lot of my questions on some of that feedback when I do speak with Bo. So obviously my intention will be to be extremely objective, and I will certainly endeavour to provide a means in which Bo can respond further and deeper. But when it comes to issues of legality, I want to talk to you about that because FTX are also going through their own lawsuit, their own pursuits. And, in the context of naming, shaming and raising issues, did Bo or any of the team at DueDex consider a legal response? Because these were serious allegations. And I'm not suggesting I know the answer to any of this, because I don't. But there's no question that making broad statements like that from a CEO has serious implications to a startup that's just emerging.
I mean, the thing is, this guy is so far off the radar. It's like, he's a nobody. You know what I mean? He's just shown himself as a troll. And look, he can say these sort of things and make himself look like an idiot. It's got, it's not going to impact DueDex. It actually, it does positively, because people look, he's basically advertised DueDex to everybody. Here's an exchange that's trading against their customers. You've just spoken about an exchange that doesn't run an internal trading desk. There was actually, even just through my referral link, I had a whole bunch of new signups through that period. And I actually went to the extent of creating Sam his own custom DueDex/Sam affiliate link. So next time he talks shit, he can use it and actually profit from his FUD.
Yes, so I saw you shit stirring on Twitter about that, which was...
I couldn't help it, mate. I couldn't help it.
Yes, I noticed. That's so Aussie of you. Now, mate, with regard to, let's go back to DueDex. Let's focus on that.
Let me finish. Let me finish on the Sam thing, right? Okay. This. So I never understood, right? I mean, there's an exchange that's got a $150 million lawsuit for market manipulation, fraud. I think there's racketeering, all this other stuff that they have to answer to. Why in the world are you attacking another exchange that has their ducks in a row that's clean when you've got dirty laundry and you've got shit out in the open? That makes no sense. No sense whatsoever. So very, very confusing. Very confusing behavior.
Well, it certainly is true. We don't see a lot of that. We don't see a lot of it even in crypto Twitter, which is very toxic sometimes. We don't tend to see CEOs attacking each other. So you are right there. And there's a lot more to play out, I think.
I think it could stem from, potential drug use or something like that. I know quant traders, they are like junkies. A lot of them use Adderall, even meth in some instances, to stay awake, to continue, doing their job. So it could have just been, who knows? Sam was coming off a bender. I don't know. Well, I'd like to say that was it.
Let's not go there. Let's let him answer that one. But going back to DueDex, mate, because one of the things that Sam did allege was that there was questionable, liquidity. He talked about questionable volume. He wanted to know where it's all coming from. Bo explained that it comes from third-party market makers and that there's liquidity providers there. what do you want to say with regard to the imperative of building liquidity for a small startup and a small team that are trying to build this kind of derivatives platform?
Yeah, it comes down to, look, it's very easy to go ahead and trade against your customers under the guise and provide the liquidity under that guise. So, very smart of them to do that. They basically take their money from instead of giving their money to Bitfinex, BitMEX, they now, hedge their bets against retail. Very smart, highly questionable thing. Now, when you're trying to bootstrap an exchange, you need to onboard, market makers. Obviously, there's a maker-taker incentive, but the thing is, what they want users. They want people using the exchange. That's how they do things, because they're taking that rebate, when you go ahead and hit the books or whatever. So that's what's the challenge here. I mean, I know there's like a few different third parties that are coming on to provide liquidity, but for them, it comes down to getting those users in, and that's what the big thing is. You want people trading on the exchange, because that's how those market makers are going to benefit.
And mate, what's clear is when you start as well, we see this with all of the emergent exchanges, whether they be for derivatives or other. They are doing things like strategic marketing, getting ref links, for certain parties to get the narrative and the name, the brand all out there. Now, whether or not people argue that's good or bad, it's up to them. But certainly DueDex and FTX and many of the others focused on that kind of strategy. So talk us through DueDex. What's the plan forward with regard to the marketing, getting people to, experience this in terms of use? Because obviously that third-party liquidity is happening, and there's more onboarding from what Bo said to increase liquidity, but you need users.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of interesting. Look, I managed to get a close look at what's happening, and there's some really interesting stuff coming. Over the next couple weeks, months, and into 2020. So I don't speak a lot about what goes on. Traditional, that's been the way since I've done things for the early days. I just like to do my thing separate, and then shitpost. Enjoy myself on Twitter, and that's pretty much what I'll continue to do.
Right.
But what I can say is that there is a product feature coming out from DueDex that is going to change the crypto trading space big time. It'll have an impact on Forex. It'll have an impact on stocks and commodities. That is the product that will be coming out. It's a very, very useful thing, and people will come to trade on DueDex for that. Now, certain things will be in place to protect that, and it's going to be very exciting watching everything unfold. So, that's going to happen within the next, let me say, 8 to 12 weeks. So it's going to be fun coming to 2020. And then look, at the end of the day, it's just going to be, more things are going to be happening. That's all I'm saying. More things, cool things, fun things.
Playing it safe. You certainly know a lot more, mate. I feel like I'm talking to someone in the core team. I often get these kinds of very, superficial responses when they know that there's a lot more meat and a lot more, guts to what they're alluding to. But I respect it. Obviously, you have insights into this as being part of.
I'm just me, mate. I've got a PhD in shit posting, and I pay attention. I just pay attention to things, and it's like even you take Ada for example. Early days of Ada, I had a look at Charles Hoskinson, a great guy that lost a lot. I mean, he did a lot for Ethereum, and he was robbed largely of his role in that. And I always said to myself, whatever this guy does, I'm going to get on. And it's the same principle here. There's good people. There's really good people at the core involved in that, and it comes down to backing the right people. And if there's like a good enough structure in place, the rest will just happen magically. And that's how I believe the universe will work. So
well said, mate. And obviously underneath the people, there has to be the tech. You wouldn't have backed Charles without peer reviews. You wouldn't have backed him without obviously looking at his credentials and his capacity to front a team.
Actually,
like that. So
actually, I did.
Okay, well, at least you're honest. Now, one thing I did want to let you know is when I speak with Bo, I'll go into detail and talk to him about the matching engines, explore the tech, and really dig deep into all the things that we didn't have time for today. But Crypto Bitlord, thank you, mate, for firstly just the candid discussion. It really is invaluable, and I mean that without trying to, ask kiss, because we just need more people being real, saying things like they are. And you never actually didn't, I don't think. You always upheld that sort of direct, sort of a cultural approach that we tend to take as Aussies. Some don't like it, but you certainly are right in there, right in the mix. You're well known. And I thank you very much for this conversation. It's been quite open.
Well, thanks for having me on here, mate. I really enjoyed it. Just kicking back, talking some crypto, having a laugh. That's it, man. I mean, it's been a good time. I've enjoyed myself. So thanks for having me on.
Anytime, mate. You're always welcome back on. For those who don't know exactly where to look for, make sure you go to Crypto Bitlord on Twitter. He is very much known, and there's a lot of interaction every day in his Twitter account. And obviously look for other links as well, because there's certainly a lot more than just that crypto Twitter when it comes to both his knowledge and what he represents. Go the Aussies in terms of crypto, trying to bring it, and do our best to rep the space. And do your very best, mate, to continue forward and speak up when you need to about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything between in crypto.
That's it, mate. Respect. Take care, folks. Peace out.
See you, mate.